So I was having a chat with my friend today, and I didn't know until earlier on the undercard of Moses Atoma versus Filip Hrgovic is actually a interesting little heavyweight fight. So to most people, maybe casual fans won't know, but most hardcore boxing fans who know the heavyweight division, Guido Vianello is a guy who's been about, right? He's an Italian heavyweight. He's from Italy, but I think he's from Sicily, but he's fought most of his career out of America. He was signed a top rank, and he's fought most of the contenders out there, and he's been around the American scene. So in the UK, he hasn't really been about, and many people probably from the UK won't know who he is, right? But who he's fighting on the undercard is actually what's got me to make this video, because I wanted to make a separate video on this because it's kind of like a bit of an emotional thing for me, a bit of a personal thing. But he's actually fighting a boy from Swansea called Moses Jolly. So probably people don't know from my accent, I'm Welsh, and I'm wearing a Cardiff hat, but I'm actually from Swansea. So this is actually a interesting fight. So I've known Moses for a while, not personally, just like I know him as a boxer. I've seen a couple of clips of him, and I actually saw him fight in the Vale Sports Arena. And he's always kind of like caught my eye of interest because he's kind of like, even though he's not signed any major promoter, he's got a really big personality, and I think that takes you quite far, right? He's very charismatic, he's very cheeky. He comes dressed in sort of like a Native American sort of outfit, but overall he's got quite a lot of things going for him. So I'm kind of glad that he's gonna get in like another big stage fight, because I know he fought in the undercard of Lauren Price, and that was an all Welsh card. But this is fighting in the O2 in London, and this is quite a big spectacle and a big event. So I'm really happy for him. Okay, the emotional side out of the way. Now I'm going to talk logically about the fight, right? Because like I said, if people don't know who Guido Vianello is, I've kind of like vaguely explained where he's from and where he's fought out of, right? But just to give everybody an idea, I personally would class him like fringe European level, possibly European level, right? He is Italian, so he can be classed as in the European spectrum. But like I say, he's fought mostly out of America. So he's fought people, like he had a draw years ago against Kingsley eBay. So that's the guy who fought Jarrell Miller recently, right? He's the big fat American. But Vianello fought him back in the day when he wasn't fat, and he was actually quite in shape and quite in his prime. And that fight ended in a draw. And Guido Vianello's mostly known for his losses, right? So the main loss that come to my head was Jonathan Rice, F.A. Ajagba, which F.A. Ajagba is quite known in heavy division, and Richard Torrez Jr., the wannabe porn star. So, most of his losses are the guys who I know the name, but he has had two. He's had one good win, which Arslanbek Makhmudov. Doesn't matter if he's slow, doesn't matter what people's opinions are. Makhmudov, that was a relatively good win, right? Makhmudov at one point was quite a big figure, and Guido Vianello absolutely boxed his head off. I'd recommend going and watching that fight, because Makhmudov leaves with, looks like he's got a peanut allergy, man. His face is big. So Guido Vianello actually beat Makhmudov way better than Tyson Fury did, just to give everyone a heads up on that fight. And he also beat, is it Barriere? I can't remember the guy's name, but his last fight was a good one. He got a good knockout. I think the guy he beat was being trained by Sugar Hill, right? But it was a, big knockout. He knocked the guy completely, well, he didn't knock his spark out, but the guy just couldn't recover from the previous round. Anyway, my point is, he's fought around this fringe world level, European level, right? He's never really lost against anybody of a lower level. Jonathan Rice, maybe, but that fight, if you watch it, he wasn't actually stopped. He wasn't outpointed. He just got stopped on a really, really bad cut that was caused by a punch. So can't really hold him against that one. The F.A. Jabba fight was actually a good one. He actually wobbled and hurt F.A. Jabba, and Jabba went on to, in my opinion, beat Man Bakoli, but got the draw, right? And Richard Torrez obviously was in an IBF eliminator, so he's in that level. Maybe I'm being disrespectful, saying fringe European level, but that's just my view. Now, Vianello, decent footwork, decent power. He's got a really good chin, actually, especially some of the shots he took off like Jagba when I rewatched that fight recently. He really can take a good shot, right? Overall, he's a very solid fighter, right? He doesn't have devastating power, and most of his knockouts have come against much lower opposition. But either way, he's shown he can hurt people at the top level. He's got enough power to keep everybody honest. Now, Moses Jolly is the interesting part here because on record, this looks good for Vianello, right? I think Vianello's like 13-3, I think, or 14-3. I can't remember his record off the top of my head, but it's something like that. Moses Jolly's 12-0, so he's undefeated, right? So if you're, like I said, I'm from Swansea, so I know who he is. But if I wasn't from Swansea and I was from anywhere else, I'd probably look at this record and go, okay, this guy, he's 12-0, he's undefeated. This is good, Vianello. The problem is with Moses Jolly's record is it is a who is it of the record, right? The only name that comes to my mind is a guy called Phil Williams because I know he's fought him twice, right? But he hasn't fought anybody of a high level. Everyone he's fought is of a club level, right? And I think the thing I find interesting and concerning here is that this is a big jumping class. This is, Moses has kind of not even done like a Welsh level because I don't even know many other Welsh heavyweights, right? But he's not exactly going for the British level. He's jumping all of that and going to this really high level because Vianello's like ranked in like top 20, top 25. So he's jumping a very, very big level here, right? And as I said, Vianello, I can name about 5 fighters he's fought who I know who they are and what level they are. Moses, he hasn't fought anybody. So even though Moses' record looks good and he's got a lot of knockouts, it is a class of who is it, right? And if you go and watch any of the footage of Moses before the fight next week, he's got a nice style. He's got good footwork. He's charismatic. As I said, he tries to do a bit of a cheekiness in the ring. A bit of the Ali shuffle. He's got a jab. He has his hands low. He's got that sort of like athletic style. And I think that's the main thing about Moses I like is the fact he's athletic, right? You go watch his celebrations. He's always doing cartwheels and backflips and everything. But it's one thing to look stylish and doing the Ali shuffle and having your hands low and kind of messing about when you're fighting bin men. I'll just be honest, that's what he's been fighting. Can he do that against Vianello? I really highly doubt it. And I think it's also going to be an interest to see what Moses' nerves are going to be like. So he always comes in quite calm, cheeky, chappy, laughing, proper banter. But Vianello, man, he's not going to be an easy win. So, I'm very interested. There's obviously the emotional part of me that's thinking, come on, it'd be great to see a Swansea boy get ranked in like the top 20 or top 25. But if I'm going to be honest here, I really give him a low chance here. Just Vianello's well-seasoned, good chin. He likes to get into the trenches himself. And he's also got decent footwork as well. So, yeah, I don't know. If I'm going to rank my percentage here, I'm going to go for about 80%. Maybe, I'll probably go 90% for Vianello, actually, and only 10% for Moses. Don't get me wrong, I hope Moses can pull it off, but I think the biggest the biggest thing here is actually the fact that Moses is completely unproven and an unknown entity. Has Vianello been able to see enough footage of Moses, see what he's doing? Is he going to underestimate him? Or is Moses really just a diamond in the rough? I remember years ago talking about this and talking this style against Fabio Wardley, always giving Wardley not a chance against half of the people he fought. So, I sound like I'm being harsh. It's just the fact that Vianello's well-schooled, well-seasoned, and given everybody a hard time. Even in his losses, he's done well. So, as I said, emotional side, the support, I hope Moses can put it off. I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to be supporting him. But within reality and looking at it logically, it looks like I think Vianello's going to have enough to beat Moses Jolly. But I just hope Moses can pull it off. I hope he can keep that jab. I hope he can keep that movement. I hope he can just break Vianello down. So that's my thoughts. I'm really excited for it. As I said, mainly just because he's a Swansea boy. I want to watch this fight so badly. And when I got told by my friend Jake, I was really excited, thinking, I can't wait to watch that fight. What a good fight. But, as I said, I was expecting, I think the thing is here as well, and a bit more context. If I saw Moses Jolly fight like Solomon Dakers, Jamie Takiva, even Fraser Clark, or even going as far as Richard Riakpo, that sort of British level, I'd have an idea of how he will fight Vianello. But when he's been fighting people who are kind of stationary, that's what I don't know. So, either way, bit of a long video on this one in a way, but I was just really excited to talk about it and can't wait to watch the fight. So, I'm going to be supporting Moses all the way, but yeah, my opinion, I think Guido Vianello is going to win. I think he might win on points. I don't think he'll knock Moses out. I think he'll take in the distance, but I'm going with Vianello. My mind is going with Vianello. My heart's going to Moses. So yeah, if anybody's watched Moses or has their opinion on this fight, just please comment below, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.